When was the last time you felt fully confident in your own body, not just walking across a room, but in the most private, vulnerable moments of your life? When was the last time you didn't quietly wonder if things were fading, slowing, slipping away? Because here's the shocking truth. Most men over 60 never hear what's happening down there is not just about age, it's about circulation. And circulation is something you influence every single morning before 9. Most men blame testosterone, some blame stress, others just shrug and say, well, I'm not 40 anymore. But what if the real culprit has been sitting in your kitchen for years, hiding in plain sight? What if the first thing you put in your mouth each morning is either quietly clogging the smallest blood vessels in your body or helping them open like fresh spring rivers? As we age, our bodies change in ways no one properly explains. Blood vessels lose elasticity. They become stiff, like old garden hoses left out in the sun too long. The inner lining, called the endothelium, becomes irritated and inflamed. And here's the kicker. The arteries that supply blood down there are smaller than the ones supplying your heart, so they show problems first. Think of it like this. If your body were a city, circulation would be the highway system. When traffic slows slightly on a major highway, you might not notice. But when a tiny side street gets blocked, everything stops. That's exactly what happens when microcirculation weakens. And it doesn't happen overnight, it's gradual, subtle. You notice you're not as firm as you used to be, it takes longer. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. Morning vitality fades. You tell yourself it's just aging. But beneath the surface, something biological is shifting. After 60, nitric oxide production drops significantly. That's the molecule responsible for relaxing blood vessels and allowing strong blood flow. Without enough of it, vessels constrict, blood hesitates, performance declines, and most men never connect this to breakfast. Because the modern healthy breakfast many seniors eat is quietly accelerating the problem. Refined carbohydrates spike blood sugar. Excess sugar stiffens arteries through a process called glycation. Imagine caramel hardening inside delicate pipes. Processed meats introduce inflammatory compounds that irritate vessel linings. Even certain breakfast spreads marketed as heart healthy contain oxidized oils that promote arterial plaque over time. But here's what almost no one tells you. A 2014 study published in the Journal of Nitric Oxide Biology found that men who increased specific nitrate-rich foods saw up to a 36% improvement in endothelial function within weeks. 36%, that's not minor, that's transformative. And yet most kitchens don't contain that food in its most powerful morning form. Instead, they contain something else. Something many men eat daily, believing it's harmless, even beneficial. A staple, a comfort, a routine. You see, circulation isn't only about avoiding heart attacks decades from now. It's about how alive you feel tomorrow morning. It's about confidence. It's about identity. And when blood flow declines, it's often your body whispering long before it screams. Fatigue, cold hands and feet, slight increases in blood pressure, brain fog, diminished firmness. These are not isolated annoyances. They are warning lights. And here's the uncomfortable truth. One specific breakfast habit is quietly narrowing those tiny vessels every single day. It feels normal. It tastes familiar. It's even recommended by many conventional guidelines. So what is this dangerous item everyone's consuming? Let's start with that innocent-looking bowl most men over 60 pour without a second thought. Cold breakfast cereal. It sits there in bright packaging, stamped with heart symbols and fiber claims, promising energy and vitality. You've probably eaten it for decades, believing you were doing something responsible. Light, easy, sensible. But when we slow down and really examine it together, the truth becomes uncomfortable. Most commercial cereals, even the whole grain ones, are essentially refined carbohydrates processed at high temperatures. That processing changes the structure of the grain. It strips away protective fiber, concentrates starch, and makes it rapidly digestible. In simple terms, it turns into sugar quickly. And when that sugar hits your bloodstream first thing in the morning, insulin surges. Now here's why that matters for circulation. Repeated insulin spikes damage the endothelium, that delicate inner lining of your blood vessels. Think of it like sandpaper rubbing against silk. Over time, the vessel walls become inflamed, they stiffen, nitric oxide production drops. Blood flow weakens where it matters most. But it says whole grain, you might argue, and that's the cruel irony. In 2015, research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that high glycemic breakfasts significantly impaired endothelial function for several hours after consumption, reducing vessel dilation capacity by measurable margins. That's not theory, that's blood flow being directly restricted after a single meal. And here's the part most men never connect. Those tiny penile arteries are about 1 to 2 millimeters wide. When inflammation causes even slight narrowing, performance suffers quickly. You might not feel chest pain, but you'll notice hesitation where you least want it. Maybe you've felt that subtle frustration, the unpredictability, the loss of spontaneous strength, and you chalked it up to aging. Meanwhile, your morning routine has been quietly working against you. Now, this doesn't mean you must skip breakfast. It means you must rethink it. Swapping processed cereal for protein-rich options, eggs cooked gently, Greek yogurt without added sugar, even steel-cut oats paired with nuts, stabilizes blood sugar. Stable blood sugar protects vessel walls. Protected vessels maintain nitric oxide. Small change, big difference. But cereal isn't the only breakfast trap. Let's talk about something many men consider heart-healthy and even doctor-approved, low-fat flavored yogurt. It sounds smart, doesn't it? Low-fat must mean good for arteries. Yet when fat is removed, sugar is usually added to make it palatable. Sometimes 10, 15, even 20 grams in a single serving. That's nearly 5 teaspoons of sugar disguised as health food. Sugar doesn't just spike insulin. It binds to proteins in your bloodstream in a process called glycation, forming advanced glycation end products, AGs. These compounds stiffen arteries. Imagine heat-warping plastic tubing. That flexibility you need for strong circulation gradually disappears. A 2013 study in the Journal of the American Heart Association linked higher added sugar intake with increased cardiovascular mortality risk, even in individuals without previous heart disease. The mechanism? Inflammation, oxidative stress, endothelial dysfunction. And you may not notice it at first. It shows up as slower recovery, reduced firmness, less reliable performance, slight increases in blood pressure, subtle creeping changes. This is how circulation declines, not dramatically, but incrementally. You deserve to understand what's happening inside your body, because once you see it clearly, you can shift it. Swap flavored yogurt for plain full-fat versions with berries. Choose real food over processed convenience. Protect the lining of your vessels like you would protect something fragile and valuable, because it is. And yet, even these two aren't the most damaging morning habit for men over 60. There's something even more common, even more culturally ingrained, something many men defend passionately, and it's doing far more harm than you realize. And that habit is the one so many men refuse to question because it feels masculine, satisfying, even traditional. I'm talking about processed breakfast meats, bacon, sausages, deli slices, reheated beside eggs. The smell alone feels comforting. The sizzle in the pan signals strength, protein, power, but beneath that savory surface is a hidden health trap that quietly suffocates circulation. Processed meats contain nitrates and nitrites that under high heat can form compounds contributing to oxidative stress. They're also rich in advanced glycation end products when browned or charred. Remember those ages we talked about? They stiffen blood vessels. They reduce elasticity. They interfere with nitric oxide, the very molecule you depend on for firmness and flow. In 2017, research published in Circulation linked regular processed meat consumption to increased cardiovascular disease risk, partly due to inflammatory pathways that damage vascular linings. Inflammation is not just a heart issue, it's a whole body issue, especially for arteries. The width of a coffee stirrer. I once spoke to a man named David, 68 years old, retired contractor, strong hands, firm handshake, proud grandfather. He told me quietly, almost embarrassed, that he didn't feel like himself anymore. Morning vitality was gone. Intimacy felt uncertain. He'd started avoiding moments with his wife because unpredictability was worse than absence. David's breakfast, bacon and white toast nearly every day for 40 years. He believed he needed real food. When we shifted his routine, reduced processed meats, stabilized blood sugar, increased nitrate-rich vegetables, something changed. Within 6 weeks, he described a return of firmness he hadn't felt in years. Not perfect, but alive, encouraging, hopeful. But even bacon isn't the worst offender. The #1 morning circulatory saboteur is something millions of men drink daily. Something warm, comforting, socially sacred. And when combined with sugar or flavored syrups, it becomes a silent killer of vascular flexibility. I'm talking about sugary coffee drinks. Now, plain black coffee in moderation isn't the villain. The problem is what's added: flavored creamers loaded with hydrogenated oils, syrups containing high fructose corn syrup, whipped toppings turning a beverage into a metabolic event. Here's the cruel irony: you drink it for energy, but the rapid sugar surge causes insulin spikes that constrict blood vessels hours later. High fructose corn syrup specifically promotes uric acid production, which directly impairs nitric oxide synthesis. No nitric oxide, no relaxation of blood vessels, no sustained firmness. A 2014 study in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology showed that excessive sugar intake significantly reduced endothelial function and increased markers of vascular stiffness in older adults. That stiffness is the beginning of erectile decline long before heart symptoms appear. This is why erectile challenges are often called the canary in the coal mine of cardiovascular disease. The smallest vessels show distress first. It's not random, it's biological. Many men tell themselves, it's just one drink. But if that drink happens daily for years, it becomes cumulative damage, like tiny cracks forming in a dam. You don't notice until pressure builds. And here's the emotional weight of this truth. It's not about shame. It's not about blame. It's about awareness. Because avoiding these traps is only half the battle. You can remove the irritants, calm inflammation, stabilize blood sugar, but circulation also needs rebuilding. Blood vessels can regain flexibility. Nitric oxide can increase. Endothelial cells can repair. The body is astonishingly responsive when given the right raw materials. So now let's turn the page from what you must avoid to what you must take daily. The first thing you must understand is that rebuilding circulation after 60 isn't about chasing a miracle pill. It's about restoring what time has quietly depleted, and one of the most overlooked nutrients for men in this stage of life is natural dietary nitrates, not the synthetic kind in processed meats, but the plant-based compounds found in specific vegetables that your body converts into nitric oxide. When you were younger, your endothelial cells produced nitric oxide efficiently. It flowed like a steady current, signaling blood vessels to relax and expand. But aging reduces the enzymes responsible for that production. Imagine a factory slowing down year after year. Output declines, maintenance slips, supply chains falter. This is where nitrate-rich foods step in like a secondary generator. Leafy greens, especially spinach and arugula, along with beetroot, provide concentrated natural nitrates. Once consumed, bacteria in your mouth convert them into nitrates, which are then transformed into nitric oxide in your bloodstream. It's an elegant biological backup system, one that becomes increasingly important after 60. A 2014 study published in Hypertension found that older adults who consume beetroot juice daily experienced significant improvements in blood vessel dilation and reductions in systolic blood pressure within weeks, not months, weeks. Vessel flexibility improved measurably. That flexibility translates directly to improved microcirculation. I remember a gentleman named Arthur, 72, former school principal, quiet, thoughtful. He told me he felt like his body had become hesitant, not failing, just cautious. We incorporated a simple morning ritual, a small glass of fresh beetroot juice blended with lemon and a handful of spinach. Nothing extreme. Within 4 weeks he reported warmer hands and feet. By week 8 he described stronger, more reliable performance with his wife. His exact words were, "It feels like the plumbing woke up." That's what nitric oxide restoration feels like. Dormant pathways reopening. But nitrates alone aren't enough, because if oxidative stress remains high, nitric oxide gets destroyed before it can act. Think of oxidative stress as rust forming inside pipes. Even if water pressure improves, rust narrows the passage. This brings us to the next overlooked healer, magnesium. Magnesium is essential for vascular relaxation. It acts like a natural calcium channel blocker, helping smooth muscle tissue in blood vessel walls relax. Yet studies consistently show that older adults are commonly deficient. Soil depletion, medications, and reduced absorption all contribute. A 2016 meta-analysis in the Journal of Hypertension found that magnesium supplementation modestly but significantly reduced blood pressure and improved arterial stiffness markers. The effect wasn't dramatic overnight, but over months, vessels softened. Resistance decreased. Magnesium works quietly, gently. It supports over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body. Without it, vessels tend to constrict more easily. With adequate levels, they respond fluidly to signals. Natural sources are simple: pumpkin seeds, almonds, dark leafy greens, even high-quality mineral water. Some men choose glycinate or citrate forms for better absorption. The key is consistency. One man, George, 65, struggled with leg cramps and mild hypertension alongside declining intimacy. After increasing magnesium intake through food and a modest supplement, his nighttime cramps eased within 2 weeks. By 6 weeks, his blood pressure had improved slightly. By 3 months, he told me his confidence had shifted. "It's not dramatic," he said, "but it's steady." And steady is powerful, because circulation recovery isn't about fireworks, it's about restoring elasticity, reducing inflammation, and protecting nitric oxide from destruction. Nitrates open the pathway. Magnesium helps vessels stay relaxed. And yet there's another layer, a deeper rebuilding compound that works at the cellular level, strengthening the very lining of your arteries. When you understand this final piece, everything connects. And that's where we're headed next. Now we come to the powerhouse that quietly determines whether everything we've discussed actually translates into lasting, dependable circulation. Because opening vessels with nitrates and relaxing them with magnesium is powerful, but protecting and rebuilding the inner lining, the endothelium, is what sustains performance over time. That final piece is omega-3 fatty acids, not the heavily processed capsules sitting under bright pharmacy lights, but high-quality marine-based omega-3s from sources like wild salmon, sardines, and mackerel. These fats integrate directly into your cell membranes. They make those membranes more fluid, more flexible, like replacing brittle plastic with supple leather. After 60, inflammation tends to rise quietly in the background. It's low grade, subtle. You don't feel it like a fever, but it stiffens arteries and interferes with nitric oxide signaling. Omega-3 fatty acids counter that inflammatory cascade. They reduce the production of inflammatory cytokines and improve endothelial responsiveness. In 2019, a study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association found that higher blood levels of omega-3s were associated with significantly better vascular function and lower cardiovascular mortality risk in older adults. The improvement wasn't cosmetic. It was measurable at the level of arterial dilation. And here's what that means for you. When the endothelial lining becomes healthier, blood doesn't just move, it flows smoothly, confidently, on demand. I remember a man named Hassan, 70 years old, retired engineer, analytical, skeptical. He told me, "I've tried supplements before. Nothing changed, so we simplified everything. No gimmicks." Each morning he blended spinach and beetroot for natural nitrates. He added a handful of pumpkin seeds for magnesium, and 3 times per week he replaced processed meats with grilled wild salmon, drizzled with olive oil. The first 2 weeks, subtle shifts, slightly warmer extremities, more stable energy, mid-morning. By week 4, he reported waking with partial morning firmness again, something he hadn't experienced consistently in years. By week 8, he described predictability. That word matters. Predictability restores confidence. Confidence reduces stress. Reduced stress further improves circulation. It becomes a positive cycle instead of a downward spiral. Here's how this integrates into daily life without turning your world upside down. You wake up. Instead of reaching for sugary cereal or flavored coffee, you begin with hydration, a glass of water to wake up your vessels, Breakfast becomes intentional. Nitrate-rich greens, blended or lightly sautéed, a source of clean protein, healthy fats from fish or seeds. Coffee, if you choose it, stays simple and unsweetened. Magnesium-rich foods are included naturally. Omega-3 rich fish appear several times a week. Within days, blood sugar stabilizes. Within weeks, endothelial irritation decreases. Around the 1-month mark, many men notice improved warmth, stamina, and subtle increases in firmness. By 2 to 3 months, structural vascular changes begin to consolidate. The body adapts, repairs, responds. This isn't about chasing youth. It's about restoring function. Your body is not broken. It's adaptive. It responds to inputs relentlessly, good or bad. You are not too old. You are biologically responsive. And the most empowering truth of all, the smallest arteries in your body are also the most sensitive indicators of healing. When circulation improves, there it often reflects improvement everywhere. So if you felt discouraged, uncertain, quietly worried that decline was inevitable, understand this: aging changes biology, but it does not eliminate your influence over it. Each morning is a vote, a signal, a message to your vessels about whether to constrict or expand. Choose expansion. Choose nourishment that builds flexibility instead of stiffness. And if this conversation has shifted something in you, if you're beginning to see breakfast not as routine but as strategy, then stay connected, because reclaiming circulation is only one part of reclaiming vitality after 60. You're not fading, you're recalibrating, and your body is ready to respond.